All right, what is up, guys? In this video, I'm gonna break down the trade that we took with Midas model, and I'm also gonna teach you the Midas model once again. I'm gonna teach you how to actually identify the correct highs and lows, so you don't get faked out. And also, I'm gonna break down the trades for the previous days, so you guys can understand correctly how to use this model. All right. The goal of these videos is to make sure that you understand the strategy correctly and everyone is trading the exact same setup, because I've seen some people, they're making a lot of mistakes and that could hurt you. All right, so let me explain the strategy first. All right, now there are two variations for this strategy, but we stick with one for this one, and that's going to be on the 1 minute. Then that's the second variation is on the 5-minute time frame. I'll talk about that later in some other video. So the very first step is that you have to mark out the most recent high and the most recent low, right? Untapped. Now, what I mean by untapped, they have to be unswept before 8 p.m. open, right? Very simple stuff. So mark out the most recent high and the most recent low that forms before 8 p.m. open on the 15-minute time frame. Now, once you have that, you want to simply mark out the most recent low and the most recent high. Now you can take two trades, okay? So first is going to be presented after 8 p.m. open, and the second one is going to be presented after 9 p.m. open. So let's talk about the 8 p.m. one. Now once you have a complete low and high that completely formed before 8 p.m., right? You have them marked out. Now after 8 p.m., what you're looking for is a sweep of either the low or the high. So let's say in this case, price pushes down and sweeps out the most recent low, unswept most recent low that we marked out before 8 p.m. open. Now, once we have swept that, just drop down to 1 minute time frame. Look for a market structure shift with displacement. Now, this is very crucial. What is displacement? As soon as you get a liquidity sweep, you want to see instant recovery to the upside, breaking structure, and also leaving behind a fair value gap. Now, what is a invalid market structure shift? And let me explain that. So price pushes up and then comes back down, consolidates a little bit, and then pushes back up. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very weak market structure shift. It has left behind liquidity, and it was not a V-shaped market structure shift. Now, what is a V-shaped market structure shift? It looks like something like this, where you have sweep and then instant recovery to the upside, breaking the structure. Now, with that being said, you want to take your entry from any PD array that is here. It could be the closest, or it could be the extreme. It really comes down to you and your preference. But I usually take my entries from the fair value gap in the discount. So that would be your entry. And this is very important. If you don't follow this, you're not going to make money with this strategy. I promise you, in the long run, no, it's not going to work for you. You're always going to be aiming for 1 to 2 RR. Not more, not less. You want to put your stop below the low, and you are going for 1 to 2. Now, one more crucial step. You're always, and I mean always, going break even at 1 to 1 risk reward. I don't care if you get close at break even, but this is backed by data. If you don't follow this risk management for this strategy, I'm sorry, in the long run, it's not going to work for you. And it doesn't have a 100% win rate. So don't just get that out of your mind. Okay? Please get that out of your mind. It's not going to work every time. It has around 75-80% win rate. Now, 1 to 2, simple as that, you're out of the trade. So let's say you are done with the 8 p.m. trade. Now what we want to do is we have to mark out the most recent low and the most recent high before 9 p.m. open. So let me just go here. Let's just say this is the 9 p.m. open, right? 9 p.m. open. Great stuff. Let's put it to right. Okay. Now, this is before 9 p.m. and you can only take the 9 p.m. trade when you are done with the 8 p.m. If you are still in the 8 p.m. trade and it still hasn't hit your TP, you cannot take the 9 p.m. trade. And some days the 8 p.m. Judas swing is going to present you with a trade, and some days it will not. So you can only then trade 9 p.m. one. So now on the 15-minute time frame, all we do is repeat the process. We mark out the most recent high and the most recent low, and then we wait for liquidity sweep above or low. So let's say in this case, price sweeps out the most recent high before the 9 p.m. open. Now we look for a market structure shift with displacement on the 1 minute. You take your entry, go for 1 to 2. Simple as that, as mechanical as it can get. Now this is variation 1. I'm going to talk about the variation number 2, which is on the 5-minute time frame in some other videos. But this is basically the entire model. Nothing complicated. Mark out the most recent high and most recent low that are unswept before 8 p.m. and before 9 p.m. Really simple. Now that we have understood the strategy once again, and one more thing that I didn't teach you is that these highs and lows that form must form after New York, previous day's New York session. So the New York session ends at 12, right? 12 p.m., right? So that's when you start looking for most recent highs and lows. Anything, any liquidity point inside the previous day's New York session is not valid. I don't care about them. So now with that being said, let's move on to the trade breakdowns. And we're going to start with today's trade that I sent out in the Discord server. And if you want to join, there's a link down in the description. I live trade every single day and I send signals, wouldn't say signals, but like setups so you can copy me. But the best part about this is you get to see me live trade in front of you. And we have over 80% win rate so far. Things can change, but we are doing absolutely well. There's a link down in the description. Click on it. I'm saying this because it is for your own benefit. You're going to learn the gold strategy in much more detail. And yeah, you're going to have 24/7 access to me. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to guide you through everything. All right. Now let's move on to the breakdowns of the trade. All right. Let's break down the trade that we took today in the Discord. And of course, this setup was sent out in the Discord. And you can see at 7:59 p.m. New York time. So make sure you have your time zone set to New York so you don't get confused about the timings. Please do that for your own sake. Now, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Identify the most recent high and most recent low. As I said before, untapped, unswept, most recent high and most recent low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you mark this as your most recent high and this as your most recent low, you are absolutely correct, because this high is swept before 8 p.m. open, right? So we only got these liquidity pools. The closest liquidity pools are us. So then what we waited for is the price to sweep the high. And once we have swept the high, if I go on to the 1 minute time frame, you can see that's where we swept the high. Now, notice one more thing. Now we are, let's go here. Okay, right here, and let's go to the 15-minute time frame. We didn't get any setup for 8 p.m. right? There's no setup for 8 p.m. So what do we have now? We didn't get a market structure shift. We couldn't take the 8 p.m. trade. Then we have the most recent high and the most recent low right here. Very easy stuff, guys. If you don't get a trade for 8 p.m., just move on to the 9 p.m. Now let's go to the 1 minute. We have the 9 p.m. open somewhere around here. And right after we get a sweep, we look for a market structure shift. And what do we have? Sweep and instant recovery. Price pushes down, leaves behind a fair value gap. That's what I call displacement. There's no liquidity being engineered here. There are no highs around this level. Just straight up market structure shift. Now, what do we have here? We have a fair value gap in premium. And what else do we have? We have these equal lows. So this would have been your entry. Stop would go right above the high and you would go for 1 to 2. Let's see how this plays out. Price taps into it and bam, takes out equal lows. You could have held here because we had these very clean equal lows. So in this case, you would have made an exception. But again, I would have definitely went for 1 to 2 and that's what we did. 1 to 2, in and out. We are done for the entire day. We are enjoying our time with friends and family. We are going out with our kids, buying them something with the profits that we made. right? Or you're buying yourself something. Now let's break down the trade that happened yesterday, and that was a break-even trade. So I want to show you that as well. All right, so this happened on Monday, and you can see at 7:59 p.m. we want to mark out the most recent high and most recent low. So we have the most recent high here that is unswept, and the most recent low somewhere around here. Now the 8 p.m. opens, and we get a sweep right there, right? So let's go to the 1 minute time frame to see what happened. What exactly happened, right? So notice how we got a market structure shift, right? After 8 p.m. And then we had this auto block right here. So this would have been your entry. Stop would go below the low. And you can see price did go up, but after 1-to-1, it reversed and you would have gotten closed at break even. Now let's see if we've got any setup for the 9 p.m., right? So that's 2045. All right, so we have 8:59. Now, we don't have most recent low, okay? Everything is swept, and these are not valid. These liquidity points are not valid because they formed in the previous day's New York session. So we don't have a most recent low, but we only have the most recent high. So if we can take this high out before midnight open, which is 12, then we can look for setup. Otherwise, we are not taking any setups. So you can see now this entire setup becomes invalid. So on Monday, that was only one break-even trade. We can only take 2 trades max, and 8 p.m. one and the 9 p.m. one. You cannot take 2 trades for 8 p.m. and you cannot take 2 trades for 9 p.m. Only one each. I hope that's clear. Now let's move on to the Friday. All right, so a quick correction. This breakdown is going to be for Monday. It says Sunday down there, but it is Monday for us. It was Monday for us. So the previous example that I showed, that was on Tuesday. Okay, and the first example that happened today, Wednesday. So this trade was a bit tricky, but it was very easy. If you watch my previous videos, I explained everything in them, but I'm going to explain that again. So 7:59, and what we have is the most recent low, and we have the most recent high over here. Now, what we do is we get a sweep, and then the next goal, the next part is that we have to look for a market structure shift, okay? So we push down, and we don't have a market structure shift so far. We didn't break above this high. Then we push down even more. And notice one more thing, okay? This is very crucial, okay? So over here, what you can see is, let's go here, right? 8:59. We don't have most recent low over here. So in this case, what I would be waiting for is to price to seep out this most recent high over here, and we should be getting our entry before the midnight open. But since we don't have any low, we can still look for a market structure shift for the 8 p.m. model that happened. So we already have swept the most recent low that from before 8 p.m. So we are still looking for a valid market structure shift. All right. And you can see price pushes back up, but fails to close above this high once more. So there is no market structure shift so far. And price keeps going down. And then notice one thing. I've said this multiple times in my previous videos. When you get a leg that has a lot of fair value gaps and the market structure shift is way far above, like this, we have this huge move to the downside. Now, in this case, what you would do is you will mark out all of the fair value gaps in this dealing range, right? So over here, perfect. And then you would wait for the inversion of these levels. All right, so closure above that. Nice. Now, once we have closed above this, that's when we took our entry. Stop right below the inversion. Now, of course, you could have taken this after market structure shift, and I'll show you how. All right. So we got our, you can see we also had a market structure shift, and we had inversion. So now we had this huge auto block, and that's from where you could have taken your entry, or there was this fair value gap over here, right? But we took our entry from the inversion, retest of this inversion, and we went for 1 to 2. And you'll see how this played out. Bam, right there, easy peasy. And we were done for the day. So in these tricky situations, you have to be careful. And that's where the experience comes in, okay? You have to look at things differently. But 90% of the time, the strategy is going to be mechanical. Only this time, we had to look at things differently, a little bit differently. So that was it for this video, guys. Again, there's a link down in the description. Check the video, all the page, and you will see what I offer in the Discord server. You get the entire FastMC course and a lot of other benefits. I hate to promote shit, but it is for your own benefit. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.